so Facebook is live. All right, so thank you guys for being a part of this presentation today. Let me go ahead and start the recording here. And today we'll be presenting on COVID-19 financial resources. We're dedicating this one to business owners, but ultimately we will cover to an extent from an individual standpoint. And for those that might not be able to see the presentation itself, if you want, I did post a flyer on Facebook and Zoom. So if you want the actual presentation, then you basically just have to log on to Zoom. So we're streaming on 3 platforms today. We're streaming on Zoom. Zoom is our main platform. Zoom will, in a way, always be our main platform. And then we also have Facebook as well. And then we have Instagram. So we're streaming on 3 different platforms today. This is how we typically do some of these more pro bono type of workshops. So let me go ahead and start the presentation actually. And we'll go till about 1 o'clock today. I'll present till 12:50. And then ultimately, let me get my timer here. I'll present until about 12:50, and then we'll leave the last 10 minutes from 12:50 to 1 o'clock for Q&A. And we are in a central time zone. Thank you all for tuning in on this beautiful Thursday morning, or actually afternoon. We're at the lunch hour here. And I know there's a lot going on in the world today. There's a lot of anger, a lot of confusion, just a lot of emotions that are flying through in the world today. But my focus here today is basically to supply resources specifically related to COVID-19. Essentially, how do you get out of this whole thing about your business might not be able to survive because you might not know the resources that are available? My job today is to bridge that gap and say, there are resources available. Here are some resources, and we'll cover some of them very, very specifically. So we'll go through an intro of who I am, what is it that I do. We'll talk about the CARES Act that was passed a few months ago, and there are some other acts that are coming out. We'll talk about unemployment, so that's one big thing for business owners in a time like this. Stimulus, which covers more on the individual side, but we'll also cover it from a business standpoint. And the nice thing about today, I'll give you guys some insight as to what to expect. Some things that have not been signed into law yet, but they are expected to be, because this COVID-19 thing is very serious. It's really put a big time slowdown on a lot of the things that we've done. Right? Over the past 10 years, we've been able to grow the economy. And this year, we wiped out all of that growth in just 2 months. Today alone, the report came out that 1.9 million people lost their jobs last week, or filed initial jobless claims at least, which means that the number of people that actually lost their jobs is probably greater than that. Over 40 million people have filed for unemployment over the past 2 to 3 months alone. Very scary numbers. So today I'm here to provide you with some resources that you can take advantage of. My book, Infinite Expansion, is out. So Infinite Expansion, How to Infinitely Expand Your Vision of Abundance, is out on Amazon. The ebook is out. The physical book will be out next week. But basically, one of the key things of the book is talking about resources. A lot of us tend to complain that we don't have enough resources, or X amount of resource exists to this person, X amount of resource exists to that person. Today I'm here to shatter any sort of myths, any sort of false information out there, because everything that I'm telling you today will be available for essentially everyone that's listening today, everyone in the US, everyone that can truly or is looking to provide for themselves and for their family and for the business will be available to take advantage of these things. We'll talk about retirement, the new stipulation about retirement and how you can benefit from it. Student loans. So we'll cover some of the stimulus that's available for student loans. Then we'll talk about business loans. So in particular, the PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, and some of the other local loans that's out there. And at any time, you can feel free to ask any questions. But we will leave about 10 minutes at the end for some Q&A. And in order to ask a question, if you're on Zoom, you can simply type in a chat box, or you can unmute yourself. If you're on Instagram or Facebook, then you simply type your question in the chat box. I'll be able to go through the questions. I see all the questions across all the platforms, which is a big reason why I do it this way, so I have visibility of all 3 platforms. And by the way, tonight at 6:30, from 6:30 to 8:30, Trend Africa is hosting a COVID-19 sort of update, where do we go from here type of deal. And I'll be a part of the panel from 6:30 to 8:30 tonight. That's all in Central Time. It will be live stream on Facebook like we usually do. And then next week on June 10th, I'll be sitting on a panel with Becker Business, just talking about how do you run a business in an environment like this. Because some people might think, oh yeah, COVID-19 might go away next year. But when something like this happens, it has a permanent effect on certain things. For example, the way we conduct business. Instead of doing in-person meetings, we might need to rely on Zoom, which is why Zoom stock price is going through the roof right now. I would say I'm a proud shareholder of Zoom, and that their stock price went through the roof because of COVID-19. So the key here is some businesses are thriving and some are suffering. Even if you're in either or category, you can thrive more after listening to this presentation today. And that's the whole purpose. So introduction, who am I? My name is Jeff Badu. I'm a licensed certified public accountant. I attended the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and essentially got a bachelor's and master's degree in accounting. I'm a parallel entrepreneur and a wealth multiplier, the founder and CEO of Badu Enterprises LLC, which is a multinational conglomerate in the finance industry. What we do is we provide a suite of financial services, including our marquee service, which is taxes, through Badu Tax Services LLC, which does tax preparation, planning, and representation for individuals and businesses across all 50 states in the U.S., as well as over 10 countries at the moment. Also run Badu Investments LLC, which is a real estate investment company primarily. We invest in multifamilies, residential properties on the south side of Chicago in order to provide stable living to the communities. Basically, we'll take a building and we'll either renovate it or we'll provide better management so that it can truly provide for the community, right, and stable housing. For example, a lot of landlords nowadays are slumlords, meaning that you ask them for a maintenance request and they don't get back to you, or they they call it choppy or shoddy work. So what we do is we make sure that if we get a request, we fulfill it to the best of our ability. We have tenant communities where basically we supply resources to our tenants. We say, hey, if you need some financial support, here's a resource you could take advantage of. So we don't just rent out properties to people. We basically teach them about wealth building principles and everything like that. The Badu Foundation is officially going to launch next month. It's my financial literacy foundation, and basically provides financial literacy education and resources to youth ages 6 through 18. So we start them as early as 6 and they go until 18. And then also we help the homeless community, those experiencing homelessness, just teaching them financial literacy. We take them through a 4-week financial literacy program that will be officially launched next month, July 1st. But we are, of course, doing the groundwork. We're getting everything refined, retooled, and everything like that, applying for grants. So if you would like to be a part of the program, just let me know. I'll share my contact information for those that don't have it at the end. But this is what we have to do. We have to supply resources. My job on this planet, my purpose on this planet is to inspire and support the super hungry to take hold of infinite resources like we're talking about today in order to create an abundant lifestyle. So we're all about creating abundance. We're all about helping see the big picture. We're all about fulfilling your best life possible. We're not about settling. We don't settle. We don't talk anything that's small. We talk big talk. And if you ever need help, we're always here to help you. So let's get to it. The CARES Act, which basically is the Coronavirus Relief Act, was passed on Friday, March 27, 2020. It's a $2 trillion emergency relief package, and there will be more money coming, or more money coming. As a matter of fact, there was a bill that was passed in the House a few weeks ago that said that they would like to release $3 trillion to the economy in the form of additional stimulus checks, which we'll talk about in a second. They didn't necessarily mention small business relief because the main thing of the CARES Act was small businesses. But I can imagine that the Senate is probably going to counter, or they've probably already countered and said, you know what, we need to include some small business relief in there because small businesses are still suffering right now. We just experienced or witnessed the riots that are going on, all the looting that's going on. Some small businesses lost everything. So now we have to really start from scratch. As of COVID-19 that set us back enough, we now have looting and rioting that has caused some havoc. So now the government needs to implement that into their stimulus package and say, okay, enough is enough. Here's what we can do for the individuals. Here's what we can do for the businesses. So there will be more money coming soon. There's updates that are released at least twice a week nowadays. So please, please, please stay posted. Pay attention to your Facebook news feed from a business standpoint or from a update standpoint. Right? Some people post cat videos and all that on Facebook. But I challenge you to use Facebook as a tool that really supplies you with information and resources and knowledge. Same thing goes with Instagram and all these other platforms. I know there's so much negativity in the world today, but we really got to look at the light because the light is really shining for a lot of us where we can truly take advantage. So who knows, by this time next week, we might get a new act that's passed, a new stimulus package that's passed. Nobody knows right now. What I do know right now is you have to be ready. You have to put yourself in position to be prepared for it, meaning that you have to stay organized. You got to get your documents in order. That you can do in order to prepare for some of these things, because the moment they release it, people will be all over it, because people have sort of realized that the system in America is really for those who can truly pay attention. If you can pay attention, if you can read the fine lines, and if you can jump on it immediately, you'll be the first to get the resources. So definitely, I'll do my best as always. As a part of Badu Enterprises, we supply resources all day, every day, including what we're doing right now, talking to you on this webinar. We supply resources, but it's also up to you to go out and look for your own resources as well. There's a lot of things that will be coming out in the near future. I don't know what those things are. I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you that more will be coming out soon. So one thing to note, if you're a small business owner, an individual that's experiencing hardship or maybe lost your job, perhaps you've lost some business, you can't work, maybe your beauty salon that was part of the whole shutdown, then this is something that you might want to look into, which is unemployment. So unemployment has become very, very big, in that there's an additional $600 each week. $600 each week. Full disclosure, I know people that are receiving the $600 right now. So I can confirm that this is actually true. Additional $600 on top of what you would have received for unemployment on a weekly basis. So this is a benefit that will last at least the next 2 months. So through July 31st, 2020. What a lot of people don't know is that the Coronavirus Act, the CARES Act, also provided an additional 13 weeks of federally funded, usually unemployment is funded by the states, but this time federally funded unemployment benefits through the end of 2020. So that $600 per week, it might actually get extended to the end of 2020. But even if that doesn't happen, the federal government, the feds, said they will step in and they'll tack on to whatever the states are going to provide, essentially. So if you've lost your job, maybe you're in a brick and mortar, maybe you've experienced hardship, you can apply for unemployment through the IDES. If you're in Illinois Department of Employment Security, you go on IDES website and you can submit an application. One good thing about this is typically independent contractors or self-employed individuals or even part-time workers, they typically don't qualify for unemployment when they get laid off or they lose clients or anything like that. You typically don't qualify. Why? Because you don't have unemployment insurance. However, with this new act, what's going on right now is that they're allowing independent contractors, self-employed, and part-time workers to actually qualify. So you are actually fully eligible without the need for unemployment insurance, because the Fed stepped in as a part of the CARES Act. They're backing it with $2 trillion. So that's why we're able to apply for unemployment. Even somebody who's self-employed. Self-employed might include somebody who's an Uber driver or a taxi driver, a hair salon owner, a barbershop, whatever it is. If you can demonstrate that you've lost revenue or income, all hope is not lost. You can actually apply for unemployment to make that hardship claim, and they'll send you your $600 weekly benefit, which can get backdated to the date that you notified them and said, hey, I am experiencing hardship. So with this one, time is of the utmost essence, because a lot of people are applying. Remember, over 40 million people apply for unemployment over the past 10 weeks. 40 million people. We're not talking about 4,000 or 40,000. We're talking about 40 million people. About 20% or so of the U.S. workforce has applied for unemployment. This is the scariest unemployment number in the history of the U.S. that I can think of. So we're in pretty bad times now, but all hope is not lost. Remember, if you're somebody who's resourceful, somebody who knows how to take advantage, somebody who's paying attention to this webinar today, you can get $600 extra per week on top of what you would have made in unemployment. And remember, if you have any questions or anything, if you're on a Zoom, you can feel free to unmute yourself. You can type in your question in the chat box. If you're on Facebook or Instagram, you can just post your question. I'll be sure to answer it right away. So feel free to cut me off at any time. But the second one is stimulus. So as part of the CARES Act, there was a stimulus check that came out. Some of you listening might have already received it. And even those who passed away, they also received their stimulus check if they qualified. You might be wondering why. The stimulus check is a 2020 tax credit advance. So I would like to make that very, very clear. It's a 2020 tax credit advance, meaning that you might have to file, most people listening right now, you will have to file your tax return on 2020 to do a reconciliation to make sure that you are eligible as of 2020. So when you file your 2020 tax return in 2021 next year, you will have to do a reconciliation so that you're truly eligible for the check. The reason why some people got it is because it's an advance of a 2020 tax credit, meaning they sent it to you in advance because you need the money now. You can't wait till 2021. By that time, your hardship might have not even been existent. So they advanced the money. In order to receive the advance of the stimulus check, which is $1,200 if you're single, $2,400 if you're married, plus $500 for each qualifying child, those under the age of 17. If you were filed as a dependent and you're over 17, you won't get a stimulus check, at least the advance portion of it. In order to get this check, you must have at least filed a 2018 tax return, unless you truly, I don't know anybody right now on the planet that doesn't have to file a tax return. But if you did not have to file a tax return, you can go to irs.gov and fill in basically a non-filer, essentially. And then also, if you are, let's say you collect Social Security or disability, then they'll basically automatically wire the money to your account without you ever having to do anything. But if you own a business or anything like that and you're still collecting Social Security, then you will have to file a tax return in order to truly be qualified for the money. So some people right now actually have the money. Right? They've deposited it, they've spent it, they've done whatever they want with it. But come 2021, you might have to pay it back if you're not qualified. So to truly qualify, and this is a big selling point for our firm, we're a tax firm, you will have to file your 2020 tax return. That goes without question. If you don't file and the government determines that you were not eligible, they'll send you a bill. They'll send you a notice saying, hey, where's our money, basically? We gave you $1,200 in 2020. You did not file your 2020 tax return. It's now 2023, and we found out that you made $100,000. Where's the money? So if you get a letter like that, don't be surprised. Now, if your income, so here's how to qualify. And by the way, if you filed a 2019 tax return, they'll use that in order to determine whether or not you get the advance. So basically, as long as your adjusted gross income or the money that you earn is less than $75,000 for single and $150,000 for married filing jointly, $112,500 for head of household, as long as you fall below those thresholds, you qualify for the advance at least. And in 2020, they'll do the same thing where they'll say, okay, did you hit these targets? Yes or no? If yes, like if you're below these targets, then you don't have to pay the money back. If you are, like if you're above the 75 or if you're above the 150 or so, then you might have to pay either a portion of it or all of it back. We do have a question. It says, do we have to include the stimulus check when we file our taxes? You don't have to. It's not taxable income, so that's one thing I want to make sure nobody gets confused. You don't have to include the $1,200 in your taxable income, but to determine if you were eligible for the $1,200, you will have to do a reconciliation on your tax return. So they won't count it against you, meaning that you won't have to report it as like income, as if like you worked and you earned wages. But to determine whether or not you actually qualify for the $1,200, essentially what they'll do is they'll force you to do a reconciliation on your 2020 tax return. So the Badu Tax Services will be expecting a lot of clients in 2021, especially as it relates to the stimulus check. Now, we do specialize in small businesses, so our segment is not really in the individual tax prep side, but there are, of course, business owners that got the stimulus check. If you have not received the stimulus check, all hope is not lost. You might get something in the mail pretty soon. If somebody claimed you as a dependent, or if you did not, basically, if you were over that $75,000 threshold and you file your 2020 tax return and you aren't claimed as a dependent and or you're below the $75,000, then you will get the check. The full $1,200 will be sent to you because you never got the advance. So right now, the reason why people are getting stimulus checks is because it's an advance. It's not necessarily a 2019 tax credit. It's a 2020 tax credit, but they're using 2018 and 2019 tax returns to send it to you in advance. So if you go on your 2020 tax return, you see a reconciliation section, don't be surprised. You heard it here first, or maybe you've already heard this, but that is something to note. It is a little confusing. To be honest, I got confused a little bit at first when I was first reading it, but through repetition, through continuous learning, that's what I discovered, that the stimulus check will actually be reconciled on your 2020 tax return next year. Now, the additional one that they're expected to send, they are expecting to send another $1,200, and they will phase out that whole 17 under age 17 requirement thing. So that one will also be going through a reconciliation. So if you got 2 stimulus checks and you weren't eligible, well, you might have to pay back $2,400. And let's say you're a family of like 6 and you got stimulus checks and you were not eligible for those stimulus checks as of 2020, it might be some trouble. It might be some big time trouble. You might have to go in, the IRS might be coming after you. So not saying this is a bad thing or anything. I'm just saying please be aware, and please don't let this be a surprise to you when the time comes. So all to say, please file your 2020 tax return. We will be expecting that people will file. If you don't file, you might have to pay the money back. Now let's talk about retirement really quick. So retirement, which is a big part of a lot of people's savings right now. With retirement, there's a thing called required minimum distributions, RMDs, for those who are 72 and a half or older and have traditional retirement accounts. Well, in 2020, you don't have to do the RMDs, at least for 2020. So So there's no RMDs required minimum distributions. Basically, they just say, you know what, we're not going to force you to take out money from your own retirement. Because the stock market has gone down overall so far this year. There's the 10% early distribution penalty tax that would have applied if you were under the age of 59 and a half has been waived if you take out money on up to $100,000. So if you take out $100,000 in your retirement account, you don't have to pay the 10% early distribution penalty. However, you might have to pay taxes on a prorated schedule over like a 3-year time span or so. They still haven't fully finalized that rule yet because I know there's probably confusion. But basically, you're allowed to take up to $100,000 penalty free from your retirement. It might not be a good idea though because the stock market is down unless you were in technology stocks or unless your stocks have gone up tremendously. Now could be a good time for that great investment. Maybe you're looking to start a business. This is a great time. I would definitely say this is not the time to be going out to the mall with your retirement money. Absolutely not. I always tell people retirement is for retirement purposes. So if you've been saving money for retirement, then you should probably leave it in there for retirement. However, if you come across a real estate venture like a property, or you've come across a great business opportunity, then it might be a great time to invest it. I'll tell you a secret. I work with a lot of real estate investors. I know a lot of real estate investors who are using this to their advantage on down payments of their rental properties. So this can be a great, excellent opportunity. And then you can take out a loan from if you have a 401k, and basically those limits have been expanded. So typically it was up to about $50,000. Now it's up to $100,000 that you can take out as a loan against your own 401k, essentially. Question here is, many of the small business grants that I tried to apply for requires my business to have been initiated in 2019. Are there any grants available for new business owners as of 2020? I mean, short answer to that is yes. Basically, and actually according to the rules, as long as your business was active or in effect as of February of 2020, then you do qualify. I know the PPP loan are very strict in saying you have to have 2019 activity. So there are some grants. I believe the Facebook grant, which we'll talk about in a second, offers you the ability to apply even if your business wasn't in effect last year. There are other grants. I know Magic Johnson came out with a grant for minority business owners. So yeah, overall it is tough. Yeah, it's very tough to get some of these coronavirus grants and loans and stimulus if you weren't active as of 2019. Their main reason here is that truly those who are suffering were those who were already in business. So if you're a brand new business, then even though you may be suffering, it's not really, their thing is like, we're trying to look out for those who are already active in business as of 2019, because those were the ones that were hit the hardest, essentially. But we'll talk about it in a second. Real quick on student loans. If you have a federal loan, there's an automatic 6-month payment suspension. So your payment term has been extended by 6 months, essentially. So you don't have to make those payments for 6 months. Could be a good thing or bad thing. I mean, and 0% interest as well. So you can take this chunk of money now, instead of paying off the loan, you can now invest it into something, maybe a stock fund, maybe a business, maybe real estate. So this can be an opportunity to leverage on the time value of money, where you're basically saying, okay, now that I don't have to make these payments and they're at 0%, they won't really count it against me. I can use that opportunity to invest into something else that's making me more money, essentially. Now let's talk about the business loans and the credits. And we have 2 slides on this one. So one thing about my presentations, I try to keep them short. I try to keep it to the point, not too much information, because I know that sometimes our attention spans aren't the best. Now that there's so much going on in the world, you got technology that's taken over, and then of course you have coronavirus, you have you have the riots and everything like that. So I don't like to keep it long-winded. So I try to hit on the key points at least. But there are some business loans and grants that came out as a result of this COVID-19 pandemic. But a few things too is payroll tax credits. So if you were in business as of 2019, or if you had a business for 2019, and you're still retaining employees, or you're self-employed even, then you can get a payroll tax credit either in advance or when you file your payroll tax return with your payroll provider. Please let them know that, hey, I would like to apply for a payroll tax credit. Sometimes your accountant can assist you with this, where there's a form that you have to fill out. But typically your payroll company will be the best to assist you with this component. And if you file your 2020 tax return and you've experienced, and this is for those who've actually like gotten employees who were sick due to the virus or couldn't make it to work, you will get a credit. You'll get a tax credit towards your payroll taxes when you go ahead and file your payroll tax returns, essentially. And then there's the SBA loans. So there's the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan, which is no longer applicable, by the way. So if you're thinking about applying, you're too late, unfortunately. You're unfortunately too late. This is only now for agricultural companies. So only agricultural companies can apply for the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. It was a $10,000 advance plus like an SBA loan with very, very favorable terms. I have a client who just got $30,000 cash in his bank account, very low interest rate, deferred payments and all that good stuff. So it's too late for that, right? You can't, unfortunately, time is of the essence when it comes to certain things. And by tomorrow, who knows? By the time I'm done with this presentation, the PPP loan, Paycheck Protection Program loan, might also be out. PPP we'll talk about in a second. But that is one option that's still available as we're speaking right now. Remember, first in line is first to eat. If you haven't eaten yet, you can still eat right now. I highly encourage you guys to take advantage of the food that's out there right now. And there are local and city loans. So, for example, there's a Chicago Resilience Loan or grant that's similar to the SBA loan with similar terms. There's a Facebook grant. So Facebook does have a grant. You can look that up and you can find that. It's about $1,500 or so, I believe. And there are other private organizations like Magic Johnson. He was able to donate some money to a business loan program that you can apply for. I know other companies like Yelp and a lot of these other companies are offering grants. So one way to get access to this is talk to your local Chamber of Commerce. So there are Chamber of Commerces in pretty much every township or every place you go. There's a Chamber of Commerce there. Facebook does a great job too of posting resources. They literally have a coronavirus financial resource section where they tell you about these SBA loans that are available out there, 7A and all these other types of loans. SBA has done a great job. I feel I truly applaud them for the way they're rescuing businesses and just giving out money. Right? There's still money out there right now. The money is not gone. And COVID-19 isn't gone, so that means the money is not gone either. Really quick, net operating loss rules. So if you have a net operating loss, meaning that you experienced a loss in 2019 or in a previous year, usually you can carry back 2 years and then carry forward 20 years. This is what Trump did, by the way. But the net operating loss now allows you to go back 5 years. So you can go, like if you had a loss, let's say you had a $100,000 loss in 2019, instead of claiming that as a net operating loss and carrying it forward in the future, you can go back to 2018, 2017, 2016, 15, 14, and you can claim a tax refund by using the net operating loss in your business. Remember, this is only if you had a loss in the business that you haven't already claimed. One thing that we're hitting clients on is cost segregation. It's a bit complicated to explain. Won't get too deep into the weeds of it. But basically, cost segregation allows you to take the purchase price of a building and accelerate it so that you can claim a tax deduction on it. This truly comes in handy And we have clients who are taking advantage of some cost segregation they never done in the past. And basically, we're taking that and we're applying for refunds in the past. So we're getting clients like $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 cash that all they had to do was a cost segregation study. Of course, we charge them a fee for that. But this is for those who own a building, like a real estate building, maybe own some commercial property. This is, or if you're a real estate investor, you own rental properties. Big time advantage here. So something you can truly take advantage of. If you need more information or insight on that, please let me know, because it's too complicated to talk about on a general discussion like this. But we do have another question here. Can you email me all of the available PPP options? So just so nobody gets confused, there is only one PPP loan. It's called the Paycheck Protection Program. If you need more information, you can go to SBA.gov just to find out just more details about it. I'll talk about it in a second. But if you go to SBA.gov, you can find out more about the loan itself or about the qualifications itself. So PPP is the loan that's offered through the SBA. Small Business Administration is the one that offers the PPP loan. So a PPP loan is an SBA loan. And basically, full disclosure, we do assist clients for a fee. We do offer PPP loan assistance, whether it's the application itself, so helping you apply for the PPP loan, or helping you with the forgiveness. The forgiveness application will change. So instead of it being 8 weeks, it's now going to be 24 weeks for that period to determine eligibility. Instead of 75% being for payroll, it's now 60%. So that will be signed into law hopefully by tomorrow. It was passed in the House at first. Now it's going to be passed in the Senate, or it's already been passed in the Senate this morning. And the president just needs to sign off on it to turn it into law. But the Paycheck Protection Program is mainly a loan. It's a fully forgivable loan, mainly to cover your payroll costs and your payroll needs. And ultimately, it's for independent contractors and self-employed individuals can qualify. In order to qualify, you must have shown a profit. So income minus expenses. This is one of those things that bites business owners all the time, and claiming such excessive losses, excessive tax write-offs. So this is only for those who showed a profit on your 2019 tax return. So on your Schedule C, you would have had to show a profit. So if your profit was $10,000, then you qualify. If your profit was $1,000, you qualify. If you were at a loss, if your Schedule C that you filed on your 2019 tax return, oh, by the way, you would have had to file a 2019 tax return to qualify for the PPP loan. If it's at the loss, you don't qualify. Real simple, plain, straightforward, no gimmicks, no questions asked. If you're an S corporation or a corporation, then you must have ran payroll. So you must have W-2 payroll, whether it's for yourself, whether it's for your employees, W-2 employees, you do qualify. So if you ran payroll, you qualify as of 2019. If you did not run payroll as of 2019, you don't qualify. There is a loophole to this one. And actually, I was speaking to a banker, and as long as you ran some payroll in 2019, let's say you didn't run payroll in 2019, but you ran payroll at the first half of 2020, then there could be some leeway there. The bank could make a good faith judgment there. But basically, this is why we need to make sure we're doing things correctly when it comes to our business, and that we have our LLCs or INCs up and running. If we need to run payroll, if we're an S corporation or if we have employees, we're making sure we are running payroll and we're not cutting corners or anything like that. Nowadays, people are going to independent contractor route, which is cool, which is great. Remember, you still qualify for the loan, but we have to make sure our documentation is proper. It is good, it's accurate, it's correct, it's being done by professionals. If you're a business with less than 500 employees, you qualify for the PPP loan. Even nonprofits qualify. But remember, you must have shown some type of profit if you're an independent contractor or a small bit like self-employed. If you're an S corporation or your corporation, then you just have to have payroll. You just have to have W-2 payroll in order to qualify for these loans. It's basically 2.5 times your average payroll or average monthly payroll. Loan payments can be deferred for up to 6 months, and there's no collateral personal guarantee required for this type of loan. Term is very favorable. It's a 2-year term with a 1% interest rate, which they're basically going to extend that as well. Loan will be fully forgiven if at least 60% of the funds are used for payroll. And if you're self-employed, basically it means that if you paid yourself money. So if you're self-employed, if you had a Schedule C, you basically don't have to meet this requirement. You just have to submit your Schedule C, show that there was a profit, right? So at least 60% of the money would have had to show as a profit. And then the rest of the money can be used on interest on mortgages, rent, utilities. If you want to use 100% of the money for payroll, then so be it. You can do that. It just says at least 75%, where they would forgive the portion that you use for qualified use. And you can apply through a bank or private lender. If you go to your local bank, they can help you with the loan. If you go through my firm, so my firm, we run a company called Badu Fast Funding LLC, and we can help you get the PPP loan correctly. I know some people have gotten denied because they didn't put the right stuff. So we'll help you apply for it correctly, and we'll also assist you through the forgiveness process, because that's going to be huge. You guys may have saw it already. We're running a Facebook ad right now that talks about how to get the forgiveness. Excuse me really quick while we have, so yeah, the PPP loan is fully available right now. Like, it's as of right now as we're speaking. We don't know if the PPP will run out tomorrow. The PPP money has not ran out yet. And I strongly like to put an emphasis on the word yet. It hasn't ran out yet. But literally tomorrow, next week, like, this is not something you wait on. This is something you have to act on immediately. Who qualifies? Those who had a business on their 2019 individual tax return and filed a Schedule C and showed a profit. If you fall into that category, you qualify. Talk to me. Let's talk afterwards. Let me share my contact information real quick for those on the Zoom. But talk to me. All right, we can get you a loan. We can help you get qualified. If you want to go your bank route, then you can go ahead. It might be a little more complicated with that. The way we do it, we can get you qualified. We can get you approved within 24 hours. And ultimately, you can get your funds within 5 business days. Like, we have clients where we're getting them fast funding, essentially. Or if you have a corporation, let's say an S corporation or a C corporation, as long as you ran payroll, as long as you have W-2 employees and you actually ran your payroll and you have W-2s to prove it, then you qualify as well. Right? And this is for nonprofits. This is for any business out there. Even if let's say you were an Uber driver and you filed your Schedule C for 2019 and you showed a profit, well, let's talk. You actually qualify for this PPP loan. It's free money. It's fully forgiven. So if they gave you $10,000 and we allow you we go through forgiveness, as long as you basically meet certain guidelines over a 24-week period, and at least 60% of the money was used for payroll, then we can get you free money, basically. We can get it fully forgiven. So instead of having to pay the money back, we can basically redirect that money back into your bank account where you don't have to necessarily pay it. So hopefully you guys learned something from that. I know quite a few things were covered. But as a follow-up, if you have any questions, you can email me at jb@badutaxservices.com. Once again, jb@badutaxservices.com. You can call me on my business line anytime, 773-679-7198. Once again, 773-679-7198. Catch me on social media. The business page is at Badu Tax Services. Excuse me. Our website is badutaxservices.com, so you can schedule an appointment. We do offer free 15 to 30-minute consultations, fully complimentary. So with that being said, let's just spend maybe a few minutes. You can feel free to, if you're on Zoom, you can unmute yourself and ask a question. Let me go ahead and stop the sharing here. you can feel free to ask a question. Like if you're on Zoom, you can put it in the chat box. I already have one question, but you can put it into the chat box, or you can unmute yourself. If you're on Facebook or Instagram, you can put it into the chat box as well. So question here is, you have to retain the same number of employees as of what date? That's a great question. As of 2019. So the moment you apply for the loan, you had to tell SBA how many employees you had, how many W-2 employees you have. That's the number they're going to go off of. So if you said that as of February 15, 2020, or as of the date that you submitted the payroll records, you had 5 full-time employees, as of 24 weeks from the date that you got the loan, you have to say, I have the same number of employees. They don't have to be the same employees, they just have to be the same number. So I'll give you an example. So let's just say that let's just say you apply for the PPP on May 1st. Right? So May 1st you apply for the PPP loan and you submitted your payroll record showing that you had 10 employees. They'll use that payroll record as the proof of how many employees you had. So basically, they'll usually ask for your 2019 payroll records. So if you had 10 payroll W-2 employees as of 2019 when you applied, then they would expect that 6 months, 24 weeks into it, right? They would expect that 6 months later, you would also have 10 employees. The purpose of the PPP loan is so that you don't fire people. So if you're using this money for investments and all types of stuff, then you won't get it fully forgiven. You might get partial forgiveness as long as it's 60% of your workforce or 60% of the money is used for payroll. You might get it partially forgiven, but you won't get the full forgiveness. So basically, you have to have the same number of employees. You can't cut their pay by more than 25%. So that's a very strict stipulation there. As long as 60% of the funds, so let's say you got $100,000, as long as $60,000 is used to fulfill payroll purposes for those employees, then you're good. You qualify for forgiveness. And I anticipate there might be more changes, more clarifications coming. Remember, I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you what I know today, and I can tell you what I know right now. So hopefully that answered the question. Any other questions? You can feel free to unmute yourself if you're on Zoom, or post in the chat box if you're on Zoom, or if you're on Facebook or Instagram, you can also post in the chat box. We'll do about 1 more minute. If we don't have any questions, then we'll just call it a day. Hopefully you guys learned something. Feel free to reach out to me if you ever need anything. If for the purposes of time, if you don't mind, just asking you a question. Got it. Okay. Yeah. Let me actually, no problem. I'm just gonna go in and pour your questions really quick. So we do have, basically we have somebody who's on a Zoom today that has some questions. So I'll just go in there and pull the questions and then be able to answer those. Remember, anything we don't cover, you can always contact me as well. So just in case you run out of time or anything, please don't be shy. Please don't hesitate. We will be able to help you. Some things we do as an actual service, right? We are a financial services company, but we will at least point you in the right direction as to as to how to proceed forward. We'll always put you in the right direction. So a question as, how will the HEROES Act affect businesses who already have PPP loans? To my knowledge, it won't really. I mean, they haven't finalized the HEROES Act, so I don't exactly know what will come out of it. Or at least they haven't passed the HEROES Act yet, at least to my knowledge. And if business owners who receive the PPP loan take owner's draws to pay themselves, can they pay themselves with the PPP loan? So PPP is very strict. It has to go through W-2. It cannot be owner's draw. It has to be actual documented W-2 payroll with this one, at least based off the guidelines that they provided. and this is more for your S corporation or your corporation, a company that runs payroll. If you're self-employed, you don't have to worry about this part. You can take as many draws as you want. And then, do you recommend that business owners pay themselves through their payroll system? Yes, you have to do it through payroll in order to get it forgiven. Can you recommend any grants that are available for women-owned businesses? There's none that I'm aware of specifically, but I know there's a Facebook grant that's out there. The SBA does, like if you become, if you become women certified, like if you become certified through the SBA or through your state, then you do get eligible for more funding out there. So this one is not. They haven't specifically released anything COVID-19 related for this, but I'm sure there's stuff out there through the SBA. And also through your local, like your Chamber of Commerce is usually your best bet when it comes to like telling you about some of the new loans that are out there, whether it's COVID-19 or not. But yeah, hopefully I was able to answer your questions there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in general, the the PPP one is very strict when it comes to the W-2 payroll. So if you put yourself on payroll, W-2, and you're applying for forgiveness, they would expect that you would also put yourself on payroll, W-2, for that. We do have another quick question here. It says, I'd like to know if and how one could receive financial assistance for sole proprietorship / newly formed businesses. I think we covered that a little bit. Basically, if your business was formed in 2020, then it's going to be tough to get some of these SBA. You might get some of these grants, and like always seek out to your Chamber of Commerce or to the SBA. Like the SBA, you can reach out to them directly, and they'll be able to supply you with resources. Or you can go to SBA.gov and sort of look through some of the loans that's out there right now. But COVID-19 related, there's not really a whole lot, unfortunately. And then I'd like to know what options are available that are interest-free. PPP loan is basically, if it's forgiven, it's pretty much interest-free. You can look at business credit cards. So business credit cards offer 0% interest for up to 12 months. So I know there's some cards out there that give you up to 12 months. There's never anything wrong with taking advantage of an interest-free loan. I haven't heard of any sort of cons. The pro is that it's low cost. There's not a whole lot you have to do. And then, let me see. Yeah, so with the whole unemployment thing, like they haven't talked about any income thresholds or any they haven't necessarily said anything like that. They're just saying that if you know you make money, if you know you have income, then don't apply for unemployment. Or if your income hasn't dropped down tremendously, then just there's literally criminal penalties for applying for unemployment, knowing that you have other sources of employment that provide you with income. And you do have to certify each week whether or not you made income during that week. So I would hate to see anybody go to jail for this stuff. You have to play it smart. It's really meant for those who are truly experiencing hardship. So with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm sure you guys got something out of it. If you have any questions or anything, please let me know. We'll be more than happy to help out. Feel free to email me. Contact me. Let me know what you think. We can work on a one-on-one basis. This is more for general information. But with that being said, hope you guys enjoy the rest of Thursday. Please stay safe and hope you guys take care. Thank you.